caveat to that question. Do you think that some of these people that appear before the television screens, i.e. the world leaders, even some news people, do you think they could be putting clones out there?
I wouldn't totally dismiss the idea as, completely off the wall, because certainly genetic manipulation and genetic technology is what really lies at the core of what's been going on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. As we're going to be getting into, it is very possible that humanity was some sort of a genetically modified or manipulated or hybridized race of beings as a species, and we're not existing in the form that nature originally intended us to exist in. So when I talk about that, I'm going to be making a case that the non-human entities that perhaps did this to us, and then some of those entities interbred with us as their creation and created yet another offspring, another offshoot species. So you could say that these purebred non-humans came here, wanted to use us as a resource, hybridized us with some of their own genetic material, and then in interbreeding with us, they created this other offshoot that the ancient peoples described these beings as gods. They came from the sky or another dimension or wherever they came from. They didn't know where they came from, So they looked at them as supernatural beings or supernatural entities. And they considered that they were, for all intents and purposes, because of their advanced technology, gods. That they had magic. We look at an advanced technology, and as Arthur C. Clarke once said, any sufficiently advanced technology becomes indistinguishable from magic at some point. And that's how our ancestors looked at these beings, that they were supernatural entities or gods of some kind. Gods with a small g, not meaning the God of the universe, the God of creation, the creator of everything, meaning, supernatural beings that seemingly could do supernatural tasks or perform supernatural feats. Of course, they were just exercising these feats through advanced technology. Now, when they interbred with their creation, with the hybridized species that they made, then they created what you might call a race of demigods or semi-gods, because they had the god's DNA in them and they bred with a regular human being as well. So it was a hybrid creation between the gods and the human beings that they had created. Now, these demigods, I feel, is what they used as an administration class, or you could say an intercessory class, as intercessors that went between the gods and the human beings. So that was the priest class, the original priest class, or you could look at them as the original kings, the original government, the people who were the intercessors on behalf of the gods for humanity. So in other words, when humanity had a gripe or concern about what was going on down on the planet, well, this administrator class, that was the interbreeding between the gods and the humans, they basically administrated the dispute, the quarrel, the situation. This was the original priest class. It was the original, again, administrative class or governmental class. They settled disputes. They ruled the people, essentially. And, because these beings were kept very primitive, they weren't, allowed to basically know about the high technology of the gods, or really how it operated. You had some of them that had to perhaps perform some type of duties to upkeep some of the technology that was brought down here onto the earth. So some of them had to know a little bit of it. And that was kept very secretive because of the consequences for, basically giving that out or revealing that, that was being shared with any of the humans. But this other class of beings, these demigods, they were the ones who ultimately had a whole lot of knowledge, because they were, largely the same as the gods. Not exactly, you wouldn't call them purebred, but they had more of the gods' bloodline in them, more of their genetics in them, and obviously more of their capabilities. So this is who the original, again, governmental rulers, the kings of the ancient world, the priest class of the ancient world, and then eventually, as they bred with humans and as they continued on their own bloodlines, they became what I would call the dark occultists, the generational dark occult class that has essentially ruled the world ever since. So I'm not necessarily saying that they're totally that these other beings are still totally calling the shots here, but certainly their progeny is. Their progeny is who came into power, and maybe when these more purebred beings left here, if they completely did. I'm not saying that has to be the case. I'm open-minded to suggesting that, or speculating that perhaps there still is interaction with some of these original quote-unquote gods, these I want to find a new name for them. I like the name farmers personally, because to me that paints a negative enough connotation, and it describes exactly what they are to me. I don't like the word custodians, as somebody like William Bramley used. The word gods, it's too close. Even we could say gods with the small g every time we use the word, but it still paints too much of a closeness in a connotation to the God of creation, which I don't even want to liken these beings to, because they're nothing like that. So I would just say the archons. The rulers. That's a great term for them. That's what a lot of other researchers have called them. I like that word also because of its context. A ruler over another being, a master over a slave, is what they basically were. So these archons, the original archons, I'm not saying that they all had to go, but I'm saying most of them are obviously not here with us anymore. They certainly looked quite different than a human being. I think their progeny eventually interbred with the human bloodlines, and then they just became the administrative class, which you could call the government, the priest class, the priest kings of the ancient world, and they basically their bloodline has ruled from the shadows ever since. And I would say that those occult lineages are still the bloodlines that are in control of the world today, as the administrators of the dark occult network of secret societies and dark occult traditions that are scattered throughout the world in a loosely knit network, but definitely an overlapping and integrated network that works through hierarchy and compartmentalization to accomplish its agendas. I don't know if that answers your question clearly enough, but that's kind of my overall take on who's ultimately calling the shots. It wouldn't be out of the realm to speculate that perhaps they could still be in communication with some of these other original archonic entities. But I'm not saying that's definitely the case. I think that they are the progeny of those entities.
Very good. Very good. Well, now I can understand why it's going to be a real difficult situation to get people who are really steeped in their religions to ever ponder the possibility that we were genetically tampered with, because it goes against what their Bibles say, basically.
But it actually doesn't. That's the thing. The thing is, they're just not really. They're reading it with a more literalist bent. They're reading it with a more religionist interpretation, as opposed to reading it from somewhat of a historical interpretation and allegorical, a mixture. It's all of those things. But if you actually go into the biblical text, it's there. It's in a watered down form. You go into some of the Sumerian texts and the Sumerian creation epics, and it's or even into some of what you would call the apocryphal books of the Bible, books that were deliberately left out because of this type of content. It's all there in greater detail, but it's there in Genesis. It's there in the early books of the Old Testament. We'll pick this up on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. This is What on Earth is Happening. So before the break, we were talking to Elaine in California, and she made some good points on, that there's a lot of work to undo a lot of the religious indoctrination that has gone on, and how people are just totally attached to seeing it one way. They won't look at it from any different perspective than what their religion has conditioned them to believe. And it has nothing to do with pursuing truth in their mind. All it has to do with is, this is what my religion says, this is telling me don't look into this other alternative information because it conflicts with my religion. They can't see that that's a control system for the mind. It's a control system for consciousness. And they won't look at anything from an alternative point of view. When in fact, if they just looked at the details in some of these stories in the Sumerian and Akkadian and Assyrian cultures, you would see this story that is told in the Old Testament richly spring to life in a detailed form. And then you would understand what's being told in the Old Testament, and is unfortunately lacking the detail in the biblical texts, whereas the detail is filled in some of these other texts, and then the biblical texts make perfect historical sense in light of those other texts. But because they're told anything that's not canon scripture, it doesn't have the King James stamp of approval on it, there can't be any truth in that. And it's just it's a child's mindset. It's such a shame how religion has where religion has people's minds. It's just truly unbelievable. And it keeps going back to that. The theme of this show and my work keeps going back to breaking down the religions. Whether you believe in the cultural religions, meaning the so-called world religions of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., okay? Or you believe in science as a religion, that no truth can... If the established scientific community doesn't say it works this way, then there's no truth in it. That's it. Okay? That's called scientism, science as a religion. Government as a religion, the belief in authority is a religion. The New Age movement, as I've talked about endlessly, is a religion. I call it the religion of standing down and not taking any action. We're going to change reality on thought and emotion alone. No action is going to be required, though. You're not going to actually have to do anything. No courage is going to be involved. You're never going to have to... Nothing will ever be confrontational. We'll meditate the world into a state of bliss. Permanent bliss, don't you know? Okay? It's all complete childlike mentality. And all it is believing my religion is right. But nobody ever wants to look at truth. When it all comes down to... and then, of course, we have the big religion. Let's not leave that one out. Money. The ultimate religion, you could call it. The ultimate God of this world. That's the most deeply entrenched religion out of all the others. The other ones have no hold on the human mind like that one does. That's the strongest one of all. So all those religions have to go. You want to be free? Every religion I just mentioned there has to go, plus every other one. Every religion you can name needs to go. And the things that act as a religion, meaning hold us back from truth. That which holds us back from truth. So all cultural religion, all government, all notions of authority, all scientism. Real science I don't have a problem with, but I'm talking about scientism. And the New Age religion. You can just group that in with all the other religions. That's the catch-all. In case you don't fit into any of the other cultural religious mind control, we'll wrap you up in that trap real good. And then money. Until those religions are destroyed, humanity will never be free. Get over it, ladies and gentlemen. That's true. That's the truth. Till those religions are abandoned, you're going to be in a state of chains, in a state of bondage, period. And until people understand that natural law is the solution, that natural law is the answer, okay? That it's about what we need to stop doing that is causing harm to other beings. When we stop causing that harm, we will be free. That's how the law of morality, that's how the law of freedom works. As morality increases and we stop doing harm to other beings, we become freer. As morality decreases and we continue to do harm to other beings, you're going to be more and more enslaved. If you don't want to recognize that and understand that that's eternal truth because it is the law of creation, nothing will change here. When people get that through their thick skulls, then you'll start seeing some change occur in the world. And it's not that way because I say it's that way. Once again, it has nothing to do with me. I'm nobody. I'm one person who has happened to discover that this is what is true. I'm not the first. I won't be the last. I have no magical powers that allow me to make that discovery. I'm not special, more special than anybody else because I've come to that understanding of truth. Okay, it's not my belief system. And people have a hard time with that. They don't want to understand this isn't about a belief. It's not about a belief or a religion. It's about coming into harmony, bringing your own perceptions and consciousness into harmony with that which is. And that's all it's about. So, I'm not saying that what I just laid out there is true because I said it. It's true eternally because it's what is. I happen to discover that that's how it is. And again, I'm not special because I've discovered that. Many other people have in the past, and millions of others after me will also do the same. Okay? So, religion, the whole point comes back to that religion is such a powerful force at work in the world, holding us back from where we say we want to go. And everybody has one, it seems, or most people do. So there are some people who are out all the way from religion, from the mind control of religion. But not many. Most people, in one form or another, still have deep attachment to religion. And that's why they're in mental bondage, and that's why they're creating the conditions through their mental bondage that create physical bondage in the world. And until they stop thinking like that, don't expect the physical bondage to go away or to magically transmute itself or change, because it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. So,
Mark,
sure. Go ahead, Elaine.
No problem. I'm reminded of what Carl Jung said. Mental illness in any society, I'm paraphrasing it,
sure,
but mental illness in any society is due to a lack of legitimate suffering.
Well, I don't think it's necessary for that suffering to happen, but I think unfortunately we are choosing it. We don't love ourselves enough to want not to choose that suffering, if you can follow that line of logic. In order not to choose suffering and to choose the way that doesn't involve all that suffering, you really have to care about yourself. You have to love yourself and say, I'm worth more than this. I don't have to go through all that suffering. I'm better than that. I can learn what's true and then align my behavior to it. And then I won't have to go through all that suffering. But no, not humanity, because we hate ourselves at our core. We are self-loathing people at our core. And until that illness is healed, expect more of the same. We have to become into true self-love. You can't really love anybody else unless you truly love yourself. And if you want more suffering for yourself, of course you're not going to care about what other people are in suffering. You're not going to give a damn about that. You don't care whether you're in suffering, let alone other people. Why would we expect anything to be different in this world instead of it being full of suffering and slavery? Because we don't even care enough about ourselves not to want to go down that painful path. So Elaine, great points that you've brought up here. Definitely give people something to really think about deeply. So thank you so much for the call.